Welcome back to LG Hockey Hotline. This is V-High with Maranaconda, and we have a special guest, site creator Tris10 is with us tonight, and we're going to start off talking to him before we get into any of the league stuff. So how you guys doing tonight, Mike?
Doing good, man. Week one is officially in the books, and it was an interesting week. Some teams did what they were kind of expected to, others did not, and some kind of just came out flat. But hey, it's week one. It's a lot of fresh new faces on teams, and it takes a little bit of time to gel for a lot of teams. And here we go. We're into week two. Joined by Tris this weekend, and Tris, how's it going, man? How's season 4 on the PSN side going for you? And what is it, season 29?
26.
26.
26.
On the Xbox.
And we held down the fort this week, and that's important because this is the first time we launched both leagues at the same time. Right, you had the drafts the same day, you had the biddings the same day, you had the start of week one the first same time. So you had all the problems now times two, and we're very happy to get through the first week because when you're dealing with the 4,500 members we have, you double that for the first time, and it can drive you nuts for a little bit. But we held the fort down. I think it's gone pretty smooth, I would say. We've, like you said, it's our 26th season now on Xbox. So we know what to do, and the things that come up don't surprise us as much as they used to. So
yeah, and then of course on the PlayStation side, everything was rescheduled on Sunday, so we started Monday, and then PlayStation Network, right, and then PlayStation Network on Monday decides to take a crash.
Yeah, and that's what the Xbox guys still use against the PlayStation players. The network's just not as good.
Right.
The start of every season, it decides to go down.
I think it's because everybody's on at the same time. But everything go, I guess, as smooth as you could expect it to, having both leagues start at the same time.
No site crashes.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering is, you have however many, you're looking at probably well over 200 teams, I would think.
214 teams this season.
Yeah, my God. So, when NHL bidding goes live, you got 60 teams out there bidding all at the same time on the server. And, that's pretty impressive that it came off without a hitch.
Yeah, it's only a problem until you notice it's a problem. And you guys don't notice the problem, so that's a huge success.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get right into this. I know there's some things that you wanted to talk about coming on here. Let's start off with the API because I've heard a lot of people talking about Club Challenge this week, and part of that could be, and I'm talking specifically PlayStation side because that's all I'm involved with, but there seemed to be connection issues in certain games that were causing people to throw their arms up and scream about it. But the API, as far as putting stats in once those games are finished, is extremely easy.
Yeah, and accurate.
And
I cannot stress the accuracy part. Just remember last year, you guys were using player names. And that drove me up the wall because when you had player names, you had to educate the entire community. When you have Xbox and PlayStation, you've now got 5,000 people that you have to keep on top of something that they had to update. They had to update their player name. And that was just an enormous task to do. And then even still, the API would always find false positives. T. Smith, there could be 5 T. Smiths. It was very, very hard to do. And the smaller the username, the more likely it would to get another false positive. So, the main reason when we had the player summary screen this year that had the gamer tag, even though there was inconsistencies with shots, the fact that we got away from player name, I was all in. I wanted to dump that system as fast as I could because it was a nightmare to keep up. So and now having an API is just it's literally the dream I've always hoped for. Because even with the OCR and managers doing stats, you still get a ton of inconsistencies and you still get a ton of stat errors. Even though we had all the tools in there to be like, this doesn't add up or you're missing this field, you still, how many games were red? You would still see 4 or 5 every night for one league. Now that is all gone. And that is so huge.
Yeah, it blew me away when I used it. I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like this can't be right. I'm like, where's all the takeaways and giveaways? And I was like, oh God, am I gonna have to go in and put that in? And I went and checked the game after the fact, and I was like, oh God, they're all right there.
And it locks it down. So we actually, you as managers probably know this. If you've put in stats for an API, you as a manager cannot manually edit anything.
Right. Yep. I noticed that.
And that we call that the Devon rule. So, but he's not the first to do it. We've had many do it throughout the history of LG. So I talked to Brody about the club challenge, and he ensures me, coming from EA, the actual quality of the connection and how it sets up the game is no different than the pin system than it is club challenge. Now, getting the game started could be different because, right, I've heard, the challenges or the invitations or whatever don't show up and lobbies don't start. But once you get in there, it is the exact same game.
Right.
Well, the toughest part so far has seemed to be that certain guys can't get in the room, or if someone has, I don't know if it has anything to do with east-west connection or anything, but when you accept that invite, there tends to be one or two guys that don't make it, and you have to reset it. And when you have to reset it, it seems like the problems compound each other.
Yeah, in a perfect world, and I actually have a direct line into EA right now. That's how we got this API. I've already expressed to them, can they turn on stats for API or for the matchmaking pin system? And so far they can't do it. But if we could just do something where basically, where you have the API right now where you put in your club name and it finds all the games based on that club. Yep. In theory, it could do the same where you put in that matchmaking ID and it would just find the same games by the matchmaking ID. That's the idea we pitched to EA to sort of solve both solutions. But I mean, they can't react as fast as we can react, right? They got to, they got servers and patches and whatnot to deal with. So, I've pitched it. We'd be lucky to get it. But, in the meantime, we have the API system we have today, which is the dream solution for everything I've wanted for the 9 years we've run LGHL. So,
yeah, it takes the human element out of it. Really.
And the mass labor. Like there was massive amounts of labor.
It should be easier on the bogs too. Not getting messages about doing stats.
And for you managers, right? That's less of a task that you guys have to be on top of. I mean, you had someone there sit there take photos. I mean, you still need to have the photos before, but at least you have the system where it's just a couple clicks and
it's done.
It's done within, like, there's no going back to it. A lot of people are doing stats 12 hours or the next day or so.
I can't tell you how many times I had to sit and go through, several different screenshots and add up, 12 different players worth of stats.
The lagouts?
Yeah, with the lagouts and do it myself and, compile it all and just be like, God, this sucks. And now it's just boom, 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 boom. That's done.
And the one thing I'll say that's been very positive is nobody's really asked how to use it. It seems to be very self-explanatory. And it covered all those scenarios, right, where you have lagouts, which is probably the number one question. But I mean, you just select what EA game it was for what period of the LG game, and then it does the rest. Like it couldn't be any easier.
Yeah.
And we've had, this is the first full week we've used it, and we've had usually when we roll out a brand new system, we always kind of have to educate the entire community, but it's been pretty self-explanatory, which is huge. So I say overall success, and we're still doing little tweaks, like for example on Thursday. So you guys all know about the shot glitch kind of thing with the stats.
Yep.
Okay, so anybody who doesn't know, the player summary screen, even the one you had at the start of this year, the shots of the skaters were always either higher or lower than if you match them up with team stats. So we went to EA and asked them about that. We gave them a lot of examples. They told us that for the player summary screen, it's more of their my player stats, which is somehow different. So they actually record it differently than they record the game stats. They record it per player level. Now they're saying that the shots is actually potentially shot at attempts, right? Not shots on goal. So, you get a shot blocked, you get a shot that misses the net, it would still count. So even what we did on Thursday was, before we were counting up team stats by skaters, and that was inflating numbers. So even as of Thursday, we changed it so it's the goalies, whatever shots on goal they faced, we flipped it for the teams. So even things were, and that will get that matches up with what you saw as team stats. So we've managed to fix that. The only scenario where a shot might get missed is empty net goals.
Yep.
Right.
But that's us kind of improving the system as we go along with it. So
That makes sense. And I would see, I guess, as far as the percentages, if I attempt a shot but it misses the net by 6 feet, which I tend to do occasionally, it would count as a shot attempted. Right. But it counts as a shot attempted, but of course on the team stats, the only thing that counts there are shots on goal. So it's just weird to look at when you're trying to do the stats and you're adding them up and you're like, why do I have 6 more shots out of my player summary than I have for my team?
So, and when we did this API system, we made a conscious choice to say we understand that there's going to be inconsistencies with shots for players, and that includes shooting percentage. But the overall benefits of not using player names, the overall benefits not having managers do any kind of stat manipulation and changing the stats, or having a system where they can go in and change the stats, just far as outweighs whatever inflation that is for shooting percentages these 3 years. So,
it polices itself.
I think most people can understand that. And the other thing people can understand is, everything I do is at a systems level. It gets replicated for thousands of people. Just to give you an example, we have 214 teams this year these seasons. That is just over 2,600 players per night we schedule. Per night when you have the 2 nights per game. So across LG, I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of stats that get entered. We got to do what's kind of the best for the overall system, and that's what we do with the API.
And that's making me wonder if having, I guess if you say 1,000 people on PlayStation trying to play a game at the same time, that's why you start to have issues with the PlayStation Network.
Yeah. Well, so we rolled out the API in the playoffs, and you guys, I don't know how far you went, but a lot of people that were playing in the playoffs said there was no problem with club challenges. So you might be right.
Was it conference finals?
I believe it was.
It was the Stanley Cup Finals.
It was the Stanley Cup. Okay, so
we rolled it out, but I don't think the PlayStation guys really used it much. I know we did for I think we had a Friday night puck. We had something else on the PlayStation side. Can-Am, yeah. And then I never heard a single complaint from Can-Am about club challenges. So you might be right. The fact that we flood the PlayStation Network with 1,200 people or maybe 1,300 people might be the reason. So, but I mean, for this season, we're not going to change the times.
Right. Well, of course, and I wouldn't expect that. And honestly, the NHL community is much smaller in comparison to when they release a new Modern Warfare game or something like that, and you get 15,000 people on the minute it's released. So it shouldn't affect it that much, but I don't know. I think you just notice it more in hockey because it's constantly moving. You're constantly doing something. The puck's always moving in play, and you're constantly moving your guy up and down or left and right. So that's probably why you notice it a little more. But I guess let's move on here to another topic. Let's see. You wanted to answer, why is it when I post a Twitch URL, it shows the click Twitch icon text? I guess that text that I replace. So one of the main things, the features we have for LG is kind of the simplicity of you can go to LG and watch a game, right? When the game is live. So, I mean, for people who don't know, the way we do it is you obviously, on your LG account, you link to your Twitch account. So, and then because we have a scheduling system, I know that you, Miranda Connor or Vihai, you're going to be playing at, let's say, 10 o'clock tonight, right? So what LG does is it checks your stream at 10 o'clock that night. Are you playing NHL? Yes or no? If you are, attach it to the game. So you guys have come from the PlayStation side, which is relatively new. So this is all what you've learned for the first time. The Xbox guys have been playing for almost 10 years now, and a lot of them are still stuck in their ways. Oh, it's your site, man. Say what you want.
And what they're used to doing is putting in the chat box, here's a link to my stream. They never attach their Twitch account to LG. So it never picks up their game. So the game never gets recorded, it never gets that replay, and it never has a live on it. So to combat those lazy people that would never read anything we do and not attach their stuff, I took out it so they couldn't post their a link to their Twitch. So that is the real reason why I do it. It's a systems level. I'm trying to promote, it's for the greater good of LG and for you. If you're a streamer, you're going to get more viewers if you're your Twitch is linked to a game, right?
Mhm.
So that's why that is that way. So it's not like a vindictive way, or it's not a vindictive system, or like I'm trying to be a jerk about it. It's because we're trying to have everybody use the same systems.
Right. Well, it gets new people involved in the stream because let's say Chicago and Florida are playing in the Stanley Cup final. I may be a follower or a friend of somebody in one of the games, and I'm since I'm following their Twitch, I can go straight to it through my Twitch. But if I'm just a general person in the league trying to watch a cup game, if I pull up the LGHL main page for PSN and I see the live button there and I click there and it directs me directly to a stream, and usually if there's a stream for both teams, they're both sitting right there so you can choose which end you watch it from. It's much easier to find it than to have to message 10 guys and find out who's streaming and where do I find it.
Absolutely. And that's really why we do it. Just it's promotion for the user and promotion for the league. So
yep. And another thing about that, coming from our perspective, when we want to broadcast games, which we didn't get into last season, we had a lot of stuff that kept us busy, but we'd like to get back into broadcasting games. It'll be a lot easier to be able to find a link to a stream that way through the team than to try and message 50 guys and like, hey, who's going to be streaming tonight? I can just go on the site, see where it's at, find it, and then go straight to it. So I'm a big believer in linking your Twitch to the LG site, especially since we're doing the show every week. I want to learn about different teams, how they play, how games went, and I can go watch a game. If I'm watching our game, I can switch over and watch someone else's at one click. Someone's phone.
Yeah, and that's why I do it. So, I mean, and for you PlayStation guys, you guys have been great. You guys have been enthusiastic about how to link your Twitches, and you guys I get more PMs about PlayStation guys saying, how come my game wasn't linked up versus Xbox guys? So, just a quick note of why it may not pick up your stream. To make sure we don't get false positives of Twitches, like we don't want you, streaming your Rocket League or whatever, or some other non-hockey game. So what we do is we search for what game you're playing. If you ever go to twitch.tv, it'll say, blah, blah, blah is playing NHL 17.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure that it knows it says playing NHL 17. That's not your custom title. That's just like in PlayStation, I think that's a custom field that says that comes from Sony, but you have to make public.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So if it doesn't say playing NHL, we will not pick up your stream.
Okay, so you don't need in your title for the game, you do not need to put NHL 17 or anything.
No.
Okay.
Just has to say playing. And that's just a standard that came over from Xbox. That was when we went over to Sony, you find out that Sony has that field not automatically being populated. So now you have to educate everybody to populate it, or you change the standard. But it's one of those things where I don't like false positives, but maybe on the other hand, at least you get, even if you get a couple streams that are wrong, at least you pick up the ones that are still would be right. So, but that's the stuff I deal with day to day for, systems levels and decisions and whatnot. But overall, it's working out very well.
I agree. It seems like there's more people involved as we move further into these seasons.
One note. So yesterday I was on the site. No, not yesterday. Thursday night I was on the site for the 10 o'clock games. All 15 PlayStation games are streamed for the NHL.
Really?
Nice. That's awesome.
15 out of 50 for whatever the first game of the night was. I think Xbox was like 9 or 8. They are slacking, those guys.
Well, does that how does the league pull the top 10 plays? Is it just pulling the streams for those games that the play may be in, or is there an easy way to kind of chop the play out and just have the play instead of the entire stream link?
So is this for the is this a Twitch stream?
Well, when you're looking at your power rankings,
doesn't it just go on like views of the stream?
Views and ratings
is what it is.
So it's I have one database of media, I call it. in that database, a media could be an Xbox clip, it could be a Twitch stream, it could be a YouTube video, it could be really anything. So the top 10 was really made for the Xbox guys because it was mostly pulling clips. But then when we did the PlayStation League, because Twitch videos were in there as well, it picked those up as well. So that sort is technically done by a formula of obviously views and obviously ratings. So I forgot how I did the formula, but like if it gets a 90%, it's worth X amount. If it's 80%, it's worth this amount. Then you multiply that by views and whatnot, and it gave sort of a power ranking. So it's an actual power ranking on itself.
Interesting.
But it's I haven't really curated it much. I was kind of hoping we'd have a PlayStation API by now, but we do not.
Right. I'd like to be able to go through and, like, one of the goals for this show is if we can ever get to where it's not a complete pain in the ass, that we could do a top 10 at least occasionally, if not every week, because it's hard to chop up the video on a regular basis. But if it were simple enough, that's something that people would definitely be interested in.
Well, have you seen the Xbox side of it?
I have not, to be honest with you. I haven't gone over there too much.
So it is so easy, and they don't even do it. So what happens is, so we have an Xbox API with Microsoft, and with Xbox you can say, Xbox record that, or you can double tap, and I think it's X, and it creates a game clip, right? You understand? You're probably familiar with the game clip system for Xbox.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it creates a game clip. We have an API with Xbox, so what we do is if we see that you have had an NHL 17 game clip, let's say at 10:15, and we knew you played a game at 10 o'clock, we automatically attach that game clip when you click on the game.
What?
So for Xbox, all their highlights are automatically put over there. Then from that, when you look at any one of those game clips, there's another menu that shows up on LG. It says, do you want to submit this to the LG top 10? And then it asks them, okay, what second to what second is the clip? Like, was it from second 6, second 15? And then they submit that, and then we have the information of where it is. And then all we had to do, we had last year we had a guy, a drug monkey, that would take the submitted clips from everybody, and he would just put in 1 to 10. And then I had another script that would basically download all the videos, crop them from the points that they were put them in order of 1 to 10, and then make one video. And that was the top 10.
Wow.
And it was all automatic.
That's awesome.
The API, so it's essentially, if we had that for PlayStation, it's the same thing as the share button, right? You hit share, save your video clip of that moment, and then you just go back in and say it was from second 38 to second 52.
Yeah,
I do want to.
Oh man.
The only thing I want to ask about the PlayStation is you don't upload it to PlayStation's network; you upload it to YouTube, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So in theory, I could have where people link their Google accounts. The only problem I'm worried about is, again, getting false positives. So if I'm looking at your YouTube videos at 10 o'clock, or let's say 10 o'clock to 10:45, and then at 10:45 you upload a random picture of you at the bar, or a random video of you at the bar, that's gonna show up at LG. So I don't know how to curate false positives out of that. I was hoping with the PlayStation API, there is a feed in PlayStation, right, where it says you have uploaded a video from NHL 17, right? I was hoping to get that feed, because that would be my way to get rid of the false positives.
Right. So that could also come down to us. I don't know if it would be on the management level or just the media team level, but guys who were setting up YouTube accounts to use for LG to specifically only use those YouTube accounts for whatever league in LG they're using, in this case NHL on the PlayStation side. And does that pull from titles of the YouTube videos at that point?
Yeah, I could pull anything that's on the YouTube, but again, I can't tell if it was actually coming from the PlayStation. Like remember when we did the Twitter OCR? In Twitter's API, it actually says the source of the material. So that's why if you with the Twitter API, I would only show screenshots that came directly from PlayStation and not from someone's phone. Remember, there's people that would upload it to their computer and then try to upload it to Twitter, and they wouldn't show up.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's because I didn't want, I only wanted direct source stuff. So I don't know if in YouTube, if I upload a video from my PlayStation 4 to YouTube, will it say it's from the PlayStation 4?
Yes.
And then And then I get into the whole risk of getting all your videos, and I don't want to do that.
That makes sense.
Something we could do, but I'm telling you now, even the Xbox guys barely use it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing is
That
getting
would be
people
something
involved.
extremely, getting people involved and getting people to stay consistent and stay on top of it and do it every week is the tough part there.
Yep. I guess the only other part of that would be, since we're so new on PlayStation and it seems to have a high participation level, is trying something like that now while people are doing it and very involved. They could show how easy it is and maybe it would stick, but I don't know. That's still taking a risk. But I do want to move on and ask you another quick question. You wanted to talk about the fast turnaround on the seasons, because that was something that we had discussed as well, Moran and I, and amongst other people, is that it all kind of happened so quickly that it felt like it was almost rushed.
Yeah, well, that's actually how we do it with Xbox as well. We basically have a schedule that we do when we first start out the year. So in September, we're looking at basically October to August, and we try to get 3 seasons in. The other thing you have to ask yourself is, if you had weeks off, would you rather have a week off in August, or would you rather have a week off in January? More people are in August, more people are on vacation. Hockey isn't on. No one's thinking about hockey. You want to maximize hockey weeks in the calendar year. Yeah. So the main reason why we do it is so that there's basically by August, there's nothing really going on for league wise. And the other thing too to understand is, if you didn't make the playoffs, I think if you didn't make the playoffs and you played on the last game on week 9, you last played, I think it was December the 6th.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
And then the first week was this week. You've almost gone 2 months without playing an official LG game.
Right.
So, I mean, there is a long break between the regular season and when the new season kicks in.
That's for sure. The playoffs take about as long as half the season does. Plus, we had the week off for the holidays, so it was 5 weeks this season.
Yeah, and that's a long time. And then you lose momentum, you lose member bases, you lose people being interested in just in what we offer in general. So
2017 attention span.
But it's very true. There's a lot of people that still don't. We have Google Analytics on the website, and when it's not hockey game night, I mean, it drops considerably the amount of traffic. And then when we're in off season, it drops about 68%. Wow. The traffic drops. Like it's night and day. Like it is unbelievable that people only come to LG because games are being played.
So would that mean that like draft night and bidding, the site traffic almost doubles from the previous couple weeks?
Oh, it on top of itself, yes, absolutely. But believe it or not, it's still a weeknight, like a Sunday night and a Monday night are the biggest nights all season long. Even more than draft. And the reason is because people log in, see who they're playing that night. They check out the score of their teams. They check out what their friends have done. Like, they're just being active. And it's not about the one main event. It's about everything that the league is. So, game night is still bigger than bidding and draft and even the playoffs, like the Stanley Cup Finals.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense.
It's just, you just, as you do this a little longer, you try to sort of track what users are doing and seeing what they like. I just find that kind of stuff interesting. It's human behavior on a product that I've created. So
on the bidding topic, you also wanted to discuss why bidding is public. Now, I don't agree with that statement 100%, because you do see the players and the amounts on them and how many teams, but you don't see what teams, so it's not totally public.
Yeah, and so let me ask you guys a question. How do you feel about bidding? You guys are managers.
Well, Mike, you take this one, because I know you have a couple more questions on this than I do.
Well, I guess, how do I feel about bidding? As far as the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, do you find it? Give me your feedback from a guy who's doing it now.
Well, I love bidding, but I hate it as an owner. It's the most frustrating thing there is. But I mean, that's part of the league. That's the way it goes. I guess. Oh man, I don't even really know where to begin with bidding. I mean, I like the process. I like how it goes. I like it was. I understand the whole the one thing that I guess the one hitch, and it's the first time it's happened to our team in 4 seasons now. And, you know, the one thing that I guess I kind of wanted to get feedback on, and I know the answer to this question. I don't even know why I'm asking it.
To get clarification for the league.
But just to get clarification for guys, you know, when it comes down to the last day bid stuff, I guess I didn't read the rules, or I know I didn't read it or understand it completely. I thought that once bidding ended, whatever bids were still out there, the teams that had those bids kept bidding on that player until that player was gone. And I found out the hard way, obviously, this year that somebody can go in and make a last second bid, and you're shit out of luck, and it's just he's gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. So that was the one thing that in bidding to where, and I know the answer to this is probably basically, well, you have 4 days to get that player.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing we're learning now about behavior, and this didn't really happen when we first started, is a lot of people are waiting basically to the last possible minute to get their 17th player.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if bidding is 4 days or 8 days, they're still going to do that, because what they want to do is they've only got 500K left and they can only put one bid in, and they know if somebody else outbids them, they're going to lose that player.
Right.
So it's not about time at that point. It's about how do you close it? You have to have a deadline.
So I do have a question on that then. If bidding ends, let's say 7:00 on a Thursday night, or I don't know, 7:00 Eastern on a Thursday night, why does the 12-hour clock still have to run down if the last bid is put in at 6:59? Why doesn't it just then get released to the team at that point?
Because it's not programmed to do that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's all automated.
So what I usually do is at the end of when bidding closes, I'll just change the dates of the expiry of all the bids so that they mature at the same time.
Right. Yep. I got you.
Okay.
That's why it might happen in half an hour. But to get back to why, so one thing about bidding, you have to understand where it is today is, I mean, there's a process how we got there, and it mostly came from the Xbox guys. Do you guys ever hear about the story from BHL, the League Arena, and all that? So you guys probably League Gaming's history. League Gaming's history is, you know, we've got a long history. We were the biggest. We weren't the biggest. This other site came along. They called VHL. When the VHL kind of fizzled out, everybody came from there to LG. One of the things they really liked was the concept of bidding. So they had a way of doing things back then. I think it was mostly they had a system, but I think they still use forms and whatnot to do bids. Right. So imagine what bidding is today. Imagine a thread for every single player, you know, and that was their bidding. So when I created a bidding system, I wanted to have a complete all-inclusive package that you see on the site today. Right. And then one of the things that was new that they never really, I guess, envisioned was, again, bidding was all private. It was all in forms and stuff like that for managers. One thing that was new was the sorts. You know how you can sort by price, you can sort by
position,
you can sort by
expiring bids,
but you can sort by expiring. People hated that because what that did was now people can see when bids are coming up. So a lot of the Xbox guys, their argument is managers are being influenced by other people in public areas. You know, which I don't know. I you know, maybe for the CHL level, I might buy that argument. AHL level a little bit more, but for the NHL level, you've probably got your plan in place.
You've got your targets. Oh yeah. And you definitely got your targets.
And even still, the argument is that if you put bidding behind a manager-only wall, that the managers wouldn't do this already, right? Mm-hmm. Because the managers will still have access to the same tools that they're already using to basically get the same information. And I think if you ever put bidding behind bidding comes down to really, at least on the Xbox side, it comes down to two things. It comes down between managers and what the managers want and what the league wants. The league wants open bidding. It wants what it is now. It wants to see, you know, what their bid is. They want instant access to see all that information. They want to see what their friends are doing. They want to see what their rivals are at. They want to see if they're a defenseman, what the other defensemen are going for. They want to see how the teams are filling out already. They want all that information. The managers want a situation where that's tightly controlled, that has less outside influence. I understand both sides of it, but as somebody who's basically unbiased to both, I'm gonna make a decision based on what's best for the site. And to me, the way bidding is today, where it's basically semi-public. I mean, you can't see every team that's bid on you, but you can see the information. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah, and right. I mean, I think you would lose a lot of what, you know. I mean, everything we do is about engagement, right? I mean, this is about the creating of a brand new season. You know, people are more engaged. They're, like I said, they're seeing where they're going. They're seeing where their friends are going. They're seeing where their teams are filling out. They're seeing if they're making more than their rivals and whatnot. Like it's the whole process of the league. You take that out, who knows if people are going to care as much.
Right.
And then the other argument is you don't know if you put it back behind a private wall of managers, you don't know if the managers aren't going to do the same thing that we're doing today, where they're sniping people.
Right.
So,
yeah.
you know, I don't.
It is, honestly. I
yeah,
mean,
and that's why I will. And that's why I will keep it that way. I think the situation that you had where you lost a guy in the last minute might leave us open to the possibility. Yeah. So I mean, one idea again, that's relatively new in how we've done bidding, but one solution we can do to that is, again, have a 12-hour window. And instead of it being bidding, because you can't, so let's say you lost a guy, you shouldn't be able to rebid on him, because if you rebid on him, then another team is out a guy, right? And then essentially what you have there is another bidding session. Right. So what you should have, maybe in that 12-hour, 24-hour window, is a store where you can just buy a guy instantly.
Interesting.
Because that is essentially what you wanted to do. You lost your bid for somebody. You still need a guy.
Right.
And you should buy a guy.
How would you set price levels for those guys?
It's whatever they are at that time. And it's only people that don't have bids on them already. So for example, if you've got 16 players, anybody, obviously, you know, at this point, anybody who's bid on is gone. So you'd only have 500K for every player, right? So if you had 2 players you had to fill, you would buy them both for 500K, a store.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't actually programmed that or put much more thought into it, but I think that would be the solution to what happened to you, and probably be the fairest way to handle it, because again, it's not about time at that point.
Right.
It's about, you got to find a proper way to close out the bidding session, or else it's going to go on forever.
Right.
All right. Well, I have just a couple questions that hopefully we can answer quick, so we can let you go and move on in the show and get out of here ourselves. One quick question is, on the power rankings, how come I can't click on the guy's name to go directly to him from there?
Is that in the weekly power ranking threads?
Yeah, when I go there, the names are there, but you can't click on them.
There was a very good reason. There was a very good reason. I can't remember. There's a reason why. There's a reason why I have them all tagged at the bottom, and I cannot remember why I did. I really had to go out of my way to program it to do it the way it is today.
Okay.
Something broke. I can't remember. Dude, my memory for the last 10 years is gone from all these little details.
Just 10 years of issues that push old ones out.
And this is a hobby, guys.
Right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
No, I get it. No, trust me, I get it.
It's a hobby that takes up half my life.
I put more time into this than I do my actual job.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, it's probably more fun than your job.
That's way more fun.
Yep. And then I had another question I can't remember now. But that was one I've been wanting to know for a while, because when we're doing the show,
you want to click on their names.
If I can click on their name and go see who played against who and see all that kind of information without having to type it in. Oh, the other question I had was, when I'm on a team roster and I click a player's name, I can go see their career stats and that sort of thing in their actual profile. And when I hit the back button, the page back button, it won't go back to the roster or the schedule page.
Sometimes
You have to start all the way back at the beginning, click roster, choose the team, and go back down. Is there a reason that it doesn't let you go right back to the page you were before with all the rosters?
No idea. You'll have to show me what browser you do. You have to give me sort of something I can reproduce, because I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, I can. I mean, yeah, we should get in a hangout at some point then, and I can just share my screen and show it to you. It takes 2 seconds.
Navigation issues.
Yep. So awesome. Well, Tris, thank you for giving us 40 minutes of your time tonight. It was awesome to have you on so we could clear some things up and just talk about how the league's going in general. Before we let you go, is there anything else you wanted to get to talk about or to get information to the league?
You know what? I mean, I would just like to know your experiences. How has LG changed you guys? the way you play, the way you communicate, the way you handle yourselves in communities, your friends? Like, how has it changed you guys?
Oh man, the way the way I play, it's changed it quite a bit. I mean, I've played in leagues for quite some time, but playing in this league, I think we have the best players over here now by far than any other league out there. So the talent level and the competitiveness of it has just ramped up and up and up and up and up each year. So I mean that's been outstanding. And as far as interacting with communities and stuff, it's been it's kind of a evolution, I guess. It was somewhat reserved at first, and the more you get to know people around the league, the more you get to know the more you start to step out and talk and do things. But I mean, as our managerial skills have changed dramatically from season 1 to season 4 now. As far, and that's just basically come with the knowledge of the players, the talent base. So I love it. I mean, I'll stick around as long as I can. It's highly stressful some days, but it's a fun stress, I guess. It's not like a work, God, I hate my life stress.
Hate your life.
But I mean, it could get frustrating sometimes, but it is what it is. There's always somebody willing to play. You know what I mean? Yep. I mean, we've got people down the line and other leagues waiting. There's guys just waiting to take a spot. And, if guys aren't showing up or whatever, there's somebody willing to come and take that spot immediately. And that's the beauty of this league, I think. But and the league as a whole is outstanding.
For me, it gives me a chance to do a few things that I probably wouldn't have the chance to do otherwise. One of them is to run a franchise with my brother, and you get to build a team from the ground up and compete against very high level competition that the people in this league laugh if you say you're going to go play a drop-in game, because the competition level isn't anywhere close to what it is with the organized play of the guys in this league, and has really helped improve how I see the game unfold on the ice. The other thing is I wouldn't otherwise, definitely to this point in my life, have a chance to do a podcast or radio show or something like this where we can talk about something that we love and bring a different style of media to the league. So for me, it's an outlet to do these things, kind of on a miniature level.
Simulated dream job.
Right. Just like Brody said last night in a conversation we had, basically this is professional sports on the video game level. So you get to do everything that you do in professional sports, except that it's video game level, whereas, professional sports is a lot different than this as far as how you have to get there, how many people there are, who you have to. This gives you a chance to kind of get a taste of that through LG. And the other thing specifically about LG that I love is the balance of the rosters, and everybody having to play the same amount of games each week means that you have to have a deeper team. You can't just have one outstanding line, throw away 2 games a week and go 7-2 every week and run 5 or 6 guys to a championship. You have to have at least 2 lines deep, if not 3 lines deep, to compete in this league at the highest level. So that's what I get out of this, and it's extremely fun.
That's good to hear. Does it change the way, has your friends list exploded? Have you met more people?
Oh, Jesus.
I've got like 400 people on there that I need to clear out, because I don't even remember some of them where I even became friends with them. But
right.
But that's what I think Mike meant, is if I get online in 2 minutes and want to play a game, in 5 minutes I can have 6 people and be in a game.
Yep. No more Swallies.
Yep. Yeah. So. You've created a great opportunity for, you can officially say, thousands of people to get involved on this site, and on both Xbox and PlayStation platforms for hockey. And then you've also expanded into other sports and games, and allow people to get a taste of that in whatever sport or type of game that they want to get involved with. And hockey is definitely The league has grown since season 1 tremendously to this point, and I only see it getting bigger. Right?
Yeah, it's about a year old. I think we started January last year. So.
Yep. May 1st, we'll have been doing this for a year, the podcast. So it's crazy how it's flown, but it's definitely been a great experience.
Yeah, but I also want to mention that, I mean, there's still so many people behind the scenes that make it possible, not just me. I mean, It starts with Brody. He's my number one guy. Yep. I mean, he's basically my first general. I mean, we have some fantastic BOGs that know the rules inside and out. I mean, they're the guys on the ground that really take like the handle the main issues before it gets up to us. They're great at training the managers like yourselves to be as successful as they are. Like, it is hundreds of people that make it possible, like hundreds, just to make it so you managers can have, these experiences, and then down to the players. Like it's a giant, it's a giant organization. The one way I always explain when I, talk to people in real life, and I casually maybe mention this thing I do, I basically explain it as it's the virtual, it's an online hockey. Like, it's NHL, but it's the online version of it. It's your online career. And then once you kind of explain it like that, I mean, people get it, but it's very true because you have this huge hierarchy of people that, I mean, it's going through. I mean, you guys as owners, I mean, as an owner, you're basically a mini celebrity. You have, you have power over people. Like, if you had dropped into an AHL lobby, you're the owner of this NHL club. You could make things happen for them. I'm sure you guys experience stuff like that too, right?
It's interesting, man. It's really interesting, but it's cool though, because it allows you to reach out and be an ambassador for the league. If you're asking me, I mean, if you're doing it the right way, you want to go out and be an ambassador for the league and draw people in.
You want to be a jerk.
Right, and do it the right way. So, I feel like we've got a lot of people on board with that way of thinking these days.
Yep. And then one final request for Tris, because I know you and Brody have been looking for this. If anybody in the league hasn't been asked or heard this, if anybody knows anybody with Sony, get in contact with Brody, because they want to talk to him about things that can help this site specifically with their systems. I wanted to throw that out there while you were on here.
Sorry, say that again. Somebody who for Sony?
Somebody with Sony who can work with the system to help create those APIs that we need.
Talk to me about that, because I would, because I want to. I mean, I've been hunting down them. I've applied for developer apps. I've applied for third-party tools. They just don't listen to us.
Right. Well, I mean, we'll get there someday. I mean, the PlayStation side is brand new, and that's another thing about this league. I've met so many cool people that are from all walks of life. Somebody out there eventually, if they're not there now, will have that connection for you. So, Triz, thanks for coming on the show. It was great to have you on, and you are absolutely welcome anytime you want to get on here to make an announcement to the league or whatever.
I appreciate it, and you guys do a fantastic job. I am a fan of your shows. I think I'm pretty sure I've seen every single one of your shows. And actually, in the last like 3 months, I've actually really looked forward every time your show came on. Like, it was my Sunday morning thing I'd listen to. So,
oh, nice, thank you.
I'm a fan. You guys do a fantastic job. You guys, your consistency, your quality has been fantastic, and you guys add a great value to the service that we need more of.
Awesome.
I appreciate that, much. Man. Thank you.
Sorry. Have a good night, guys.
You too.
You too, Triz.
Right, ciao.
And that was the LG site creator, Triz10. A lot of good stuff from him. It's good to get someone that's, in his case, you can't go any further deep into this league to find, but someone in that position to take the time out of all the stuff that he's involved in to come on and talk to us. I really appreciate his time, because there's a lot of things that we asked him and clearly almost took up an hour with it. So let's move right into talking about our division, the Western Central. We will not sell you guys short. We are going to go at a decent clip here, but we will not skip any teams or anything like that. Mike, anything else you want to say before we move into this division?
No, let's hit the ground running here and get started off.
Perfect. Well, coming out of week one, we decided coming into week one, we decided to push division talk back a week to the end of week one, beginning of week two. So we had a week under the belts to talk about these teams, and a lot of interesting things happened this week with the standings, the teams, of course, teams that you expect to be up there. Some of those guys did what they were supposed to. Other teams you expected to be up there, didn't. Guys that you thought would be maybe lower in the league or up a lot further than they were at any point last season. This Central Division, Nashville is sitting down in the 7th spot in last place in this division. They went 1-6-2 this week. They're playing in an extremely tough division, and it's kind of interesting to see how this division shook out, and we'll get to some of these other teams as well. But what did you see out of Nashville this week now that they've got Blitzkrieg as the owner? TCX7 is now their GM, and they did bring Pelly back, but brought him back in net.
Well, let's face it, they're in the Western Central. The Western Central, as we know, last season was a bitch. It was nonstop. I mean, every team in that division was fighting, clawing, and scratching for a spot in the playoffs. And, it's a tight division. I mean, you've got the defending Stanley Cup champions in that division, and they basically ran the gauntlet this week against that division, as did everybody else. There was a lot of interdivisional play this week to start the season off. And, coming out of the gates, they had St. Louis, Colorado, Vancouver, Chicago, Minnesota, Anaheim, Winnipeg, LA, and Dallas. I mean,
they ran the gauntlet.
they just God help them, because playing all those teams in 1 week, that's a lot to ask coming out of the gates. And it's not like they have a weak team. They have some outstanding players on this team. Their GM TCX7 we saw right at the top of the league last year. I think he came in second in points.
Tied the original single season record,
right.
Finishing second in points last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, and Jay Carlos is a guy, he's going to be somebody that once he gets back into his ways of playing goalie, I think he's going to be somebody to look out for. I think that was a great pickup by them. He was outstanding in season 1 for the Charlotte Checkers in the AHL playing goalie. So, I mean, they've got 2 great netminders. They've got Recchi on their team. They've got a lot of good players here, and they just ran into outstanding teams this week. And, I mean, what more can you say for them? They ran the gauntlet, and, it was a hell of a tough week. But, coming back this week, they're playing the Metropolitan Division. Looks like, they're going to be having some games against Philly and Washington and the New York Islanders and Pittsburgh and Carolina, Columbus, New Jersey, the Rangers and the Flames. So, but, at this point in the season, you have no idea what teams are. I mean, you have a little bit of an idea who's good and who's not, but, they have a chance to go to the Eastern Conference this week and maybe get back some points against teams that aren't 4-point games, so the pressure is a little bit less. So, I would expect them to have a little bit of a bounce back week here with the talent that they have on that team, going to play the Metro Division next week. And, we'll kind of see where it ends up for Nashville, but coming out of the gates 1-6-2 in week 1, it's a rough start, but hey, it's week 1.
Well, they finished their week, with 5 straight losses. They lost, with the exception of the 6-3 loss to the Kings. The other 4 of those last 5 games were all 1-goal games against very good teams. So it's not like the 1-6-2 record is getting blown out all week. They did have a 7-0 loss to Chicago, but playing 4 1-goal games against Minnesota, Anaheim, Winnipeg, and Dallas. Those aren't teams to laugh about, that they were in those games and just, couldn't find a way to get it done. So, early in the season, it's tough to look at the schedule and see what's coming up and know that one should be a game they should have, that one should. But I can definitely say, as we look at the season for rosters, that the team, there are no – it's not – I look at the rosters and think that the competition is going to be tougher league-wide through a higher percentage of teams than any other season to this point, and I think we saw that play out in week 1. So moving to the next team in the division in 6th place right now are the Colorado Avalanche. They were 3-6. They have 6 points. They were 3-2 in 1-goal games this week, and counterattack in his second season as owner has his returning captain and Ghost MK and his new GM this season, Ryudo, who both are outstanding players. They have Schneider in net. This is another case where he's got a pretty solid roster, but had a tough week playing against his own division. Finishing the week, they lost to Anaheim 4-1. They beat the Oilers 2-1. They lost to the Stars 5-2, and then beat the Wild 6-5, and then lost a 3-2 game to the defending Stanley Cup champion Chicago Blackhawks. Not the easiest run of the mill there, but got a couple of wins against a couple of really solid teams in Edmonton and Minnesota. What are you seeing on Colorado?
Well, Colorado is an interesting one for me. They have returning owners. They made a move to pick up Ghost last year, threw the AGM tag on him, kept Ryudo in the mix and made him the GM. They do have Schneider, who is an outstanding goaltender, as we saw him win the Vezina last season. They have the parts and pieces there. I do see a high turnover on this roster, so there's a lot of new faces from last season. You got KQ on the defensive side. She did go 2-1 this week, so along with Ghost and McLovin. So they're sitting all right. It's week one, and we've seen, how many times have we seen now where teams come out in week one, they go 7-1-1 and then 0-9 the next week. And you have a team come out and go 2-6-1 and go 8-1 the next week. So there's definitely no cause for panic here at all, because I think this is a great team moving forward. They've got solid goaltending, they've got great defenders, and they've got some outstanding forwards. So I think Colorado's sitting in a good place. There's no need to panic. I think they're doing just fine, and they'll have a bounce back this week, or a bounce back this week as they head over and play the Metropolitan Division as well in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, for sure. And all I can say about the Central Division is we're moving through it. I expect still this season for this division, top to bottom, to be the tightest division. When you have a team like Nashville sitting in last place in this division, do not expect them to sit there very long, because all of these teams have a lot of talent, and one of those teams is the Minnesota Wild. They're sitting at 4-1 after the first week. This is where it starts to get tight again, because the top 5 teams in this division are separated by only 4 points. And Minnesota ended the week on a 2-game losing streak. Had they won both of those games, they're sitting at 6-2-1 and tied for the division lead. So, a rough Thursday makes the difference between them sitting in 5th or sitting in 1st at the end of the week. But this Minnesota Wild team has a new owner in Chiz Nasty, who, really went a long way to put together a solid roster here. Him and Easton's make a very good top pairing. They've got Kyle BR 333 on defense. So sick. They went out and decided to make him their number 1 D-man. His first season not being owner in this league. Snoop 651. His GM Saka Playa 11, who always has good games every week. I think he was in the top 20 D-man power rankings probably 75% of the time all last season. So Minnesota has the parts and pieces here. They beat Nashville, Calgary, and Arizona, and then lost to Colorado and Winnipeg to end the week. Those were their 5 games. When you look at Minnesota, what do you see?
I see offense. I see a lot of offense. I think they have a sneaky good player in Alan Canucks. Not a lot of people remember him from a couple seasons ago, as he did not play last season. But this is a guy who can straight score. He's a goal scorer. He's a point producer. He actually sets up more goals than he scores. So he's got that passing touch as well. I thought that was a great pickup for Minnesota, and a great job by Chiz to notice him and get him in the lineup there. But making a move to get Easton 17, he's one of my favorite wingers in the league. I think Easton's is very underrated in this league, and a lot of people just kind of don't really think about Easton's, but he's right up there with the best of them in this league, and he's kind of out on his own. He's out of that Pittsburgh shadow for the first time in his career here, and him and Chiz Nasty seem to be a match made in heaven. They play outstanding together. I think their GM Asaka is a fantastic defenseman. So I think they've got great balance of offense and defense across this lineup. Where I think they're going to be, into their goaltending is interesting to me. But still strong players. I think this team's definitely going to rely upon their offensive skill to get it done, and they're going to be a very, very tough customer throughout the entire season under the leadership of Chiz.
For sure. And next week, starting tomorrow night, I don't know if Easton's is planning on playing in this game. Obviously, depends on availability, but Minnesota does kick off the week against Pittsburgh and Philly. Then they play the Blue Jackets, the Hurricanes, the Capitals, Islanders. So then they make the New York trip, the Islanders, Rangers, and then the New Jersey Devils. That Wednesday night late game, New Jersey versus Minnesota, is possibly going to be my spotlighted game of the week. It'll be interesting to see if Chiz and Claus, two guys that know each other fairly well, I would say, going head to head there. Hopefully they play against each other, because that should be an outstanding matchup to watch. And then they finish the week against Edmonton. So things aren't going to get much easier for Minnesota next week, but they definitely have the team that doesn't really matter who you throw out there. They're going to be able to get it done. I expect them to be in the mix all season long.
As do I. I think they're going to be a very consistent, solid team.
Yep, and now we're moving into the top half of the division here. The Winnipeg Jets. This is a team that a lot of people are picking as possible Western Conference final team, a team that can challenge Chicago for that crown. They're sitting in fourth after week one. They went 5-4. They ended the week on a 3-game win streak, which is, if you're 5-4 at the end of a week and you lost the final 3 or 4 games, you're not feeling as good as you might finishing 5-4 and winning the last 3. Heading out of this week with some confidence, going 2-0 in 1-goal games. The Winnipeg Jets are a much better, much improved team than they were last season. There's a lot more talent on this team. They were a very solid team last season, but now Danny Briere isn't being asked to be the top line in this. They possibly have 2 top lines on this Winnipeg Jets team, with Danny Briere's line, and of course you got Frobe, who's an outstanding center. Panda, the new owner of the Winnipeg Jets, put together a great team with Scary Joey. They have Jones and net. They drafted amazing. They have Hockey Town, Dion, Boston Sean. They picked up late in bidding, saved them on some cap space for a very solid defenseman, and of course Poland's finest. This team I expect to be just like Minnesota, right back near the top of this after next week. When I look at the scoring on this team, it's very evenly spread throughout the roster.
Without a doubt. And, Panda coming over from the Xbox side, I believe he's still an owner on the Xbox side as well. He comes over and, steps into an ownership role with the Winnipeg Jets, and immediately goes out and grabs a big ticket player in Danny Briere to be his GM. We saw Danny Briere go for $10 million last season. To get a guy with that kind of talent on your roster for free is an outstanding job. So, Frobe 8 as well is a guy that really sticks out on this team to me. Some of these other guys could be guys who are jumping platforms as well, as there are some names that I don't quite recognize on this team, but yet they had pretty good weeks. Jonesy is one of my favorite goaltenders in the league. And he went out, played 3 games this week, and had a 90.3 save percentage and 0.91 goals against. So Jonesy, picking up right where he left off before he was banned last season. This is going to be an interesting team to keep an eye on here. I'm not going to make any bold predictions about being in a conference final team or anything. I'm going to go ahead and say that they're definitely going to challenge for a playoff spot for sure. But this is going to be an interesting team to keep an eye on moving forward in the Western Central Division. But the competition is stiff and the competition is heavy over there, and it's going to be fun to keep an eye on this division and see where this Winnipeg Jets team ends up. But I really like them going forward. I think they're going to be a force in the Western Conference, and we'll kind of see how it plays out for them.
Absolutely. And one of the forces in this division that they're going to have to deal with on a regular basis are the defending Stanley Cup Chicago Blackhawks, who didn't have the start to the season I think they probably wanted or expected. But they start off 5-3-1. They're sitting in third in the division, 3-1-1 in 1-goal games. This Chicago roster is among the best, if not the best in the league. They've got guys, of course, like their GM CC Piper. Class Act is back on a re-sign. They get a steal in bidding and extendo at 500K. They pick up J6219 with a little more than half of the cap that they had left. They get King Ramon at 500K. PTP returns Stevie, Straight Psycho. This team is deep. They didn't have the start that they wanted, but I don't expect this team to be held down very long. They're only 2 points out of first place, behind the Blues and the Stars, who have 13 points each. This team isn't, they weren't expecting to be in third, but again, they're one game from sitting right back in first place anyway, not that far out. What are you seeing from the Blackhawks this season? And still an outstanding team.
Absolutely. It was interesting to see how they did in bidding because, everybody saw it. They had, 7 roster spots to fill in bidding, maybe 6. I can't quite remember an exact number
7.
there. But they didn't have much money to do it. And, they went out and they spent a good chunk of change on a player in Jay. And, it kind of definitely handicapped their spending capabilities as far as the rest filling out their roster. But, when you have a top 2 line, top 2-man unit, basically 2 units that Chicago does, you can kind of afford to go out and just kind of get role players for that third unit because their top 10 players are they're so good that it doesn't really matter, So they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure. They're definitely not slowing down anytime soon with players like PTP, Class Act, Piper, 3 of the best players in this league on one team. And then, Straight Psycho as well is one of the best defensive forwards in the league as well. So, you got guys like that on your team, you're going to be looking to do big things no matter what. And, you just throw in guys like Stevie on the back end and, what more can you say? They've got another outstanding team here. I expect them to make a deep run in the playoffs. They got a good 1-2 punch in the net with Sack Diesel and Kearns. So, look for Chicago to be right there where they're expected to be again in the playoffs and challenging for a championship for sure.
Well, we barely even mentioned the goalies, but this is possibly one of the top 1-2 tandems of goaltenders in the league. Getting Kearns back in at $2 million this season, and then making a trade before the season started for Sack Diesel. You really couldn't ask for much better out of your goaltending than having those 2 guys to ride here. And the roster is so deep that we didn't even mention guys like Canuck, FTC, who's outstanding, and Deji 99, who I think only lost 2 games last season. I think he was like 23-2 or 23-1, and it was something ridiculous. And then of course J. Prue going 3-0 on the week with 10 points. Didn't mention him, Kenton Trace. The team that this is, we say they're held down here. They have 11 points. They're 2 points out of first place behind 2 teams that have 13. This team is going to be in the playoffs trying to defend their Stanley Cup, and with the roster they have, this is a team that I can honestly say I do not see a way that they're not in the mix here at the end of the season. So nothing to worry about coming out of Chicago after week 1. Moving on to our number 2 team in the division, the St. Louis Blues finished the week 5-1-3. they have the same amount of wins as the Blackhawks do, but picked up a couple of extra points in overtime losses. And as we saw last season, overtime losses, can help keep a team in the race. When you're making sure you're at least getting a point out of a game, if you're going to lose, you may as well get a point. A team like Carolina was in the mix last season. They were about a 500 team for wins and losses, but had like 16 or 17 overtime losses. That's 16 or 17 extra points in the standings. They can make all the difference. In St. Louis week 1, we know they've got an outstanding team, a very solid defensive core. They get points in 8 of their 9 games, and that's a big reason why they're sitting in second place right now.
It sure is. You want to pick up points at all costs, and that's exactly what the St. Louis Blues did. They went out and added T-Gill to their roster this season. They have returning players such as Barris coming back. They went out and got somewhat of an unknown in goal in Croft 040, who's a good friend of ours, who made the change to goaltender this season. I think that's going to be a good move for him. I've always enjoyed him playing goalie, so he could be kind of a sneaky pickup for them. And, of course, they got Sam locking it down in net for them yet again, who had another really good week. Rye, has done a great job with St. Louis with help from Prime as his GM. And I think they're definitely sitting pretty to put together another solid season in St. Louis and get themselves back to the playoffs. And they certainly showed that by coming out in week 1 and going 5-1-3 and pointing in 8 of their 9 games. So that's an outstanding job by St. Louis. They've added some key pieces this year. They added Enriney late in the season last year. So they've definitely picked up some good players. They've got a well-balanced team. The blind ref is a really good player. ZD Ball is one of the best defenders in the league, if you ask me. So they've got a very well-balanced team in St. Louis, and I would look for them definitely to make the playoffs here and, make a good push at it this year under the great leadership of Rye the Beholder.
For sure. And when you've got your team in the Central Division sitting tied for first place after week 1, and you've got a defenseman like ZD Ball who had a 1-1 in 1 week, and their GM Primetime who went 1-0-2. Just wait till these guys kick it on this week, because if you can be pointing in 80 or 9 games and sitting in first place at the top of the division after 1 week here, and those guys didn't have the weeks that they expect to have. I know Primetime expects to go 3-0 every single week. And of course, it doesn't always happen that way, but he's a defenseman that's definitely good enough to do it. And so is ZD Ball. I expect the Blues to be in the mix here all the way down the stretch. This is a very solid roster, and adding a guy like Son 13 was a solid pickup, and T-Gill 36 had an outstanding year last year. Him and bringing AO back at center, this team is poised for greatness this season. They lost to the defending Cup champion Hawks to get knocked out last season, but this team will be in the mix all the way down the wire, I feel. So
that's an interesting move for Prime as well, switching from center to defense. That's an outstanding center switching to the back end. And for me, if you ask me, that's a seamless transition to move from center to defense. So that we'll see how that move works out for St. Louis as well, when one of their top players and top forward moves back to the back end and starts to play some defense for them this season.
For sure. And then moving on to the also tied for first place, technically in first place here because the 6 wins they have as opposed to the 5 that the Blues have, the Dallas Stars. This is last season's Boston Bruins owner in chief, who has the Stars 6-2-1 after week 1, tied for first in the division. They went 3-1-1 in 1-goal games here, and the Dallas Stars, even though they switched management groups with Boston, already still look like they're going to be a power. Right. Entire franchise. The Dallas Stars, regardless of who's there, apparently are still going to be in the mix, and they have a very solid roster themselves. They made a trade to bring in B Bunny before this week started. Chief made a move to get Bill 1492 out of Toronto and come be his GM. They have Hayes, they have Henny 16, Bone Crush is still there. Don't forget about the first overall draft pick from season 3, because he is outstanding. They went and got Mooner 2014 in net at a very reasonable $750,000 contract. They put in a big bid on LOL. Voltage Fusion on this team went 3-0 this week. Will Roll Tide is an outstanding player. This is a very solid roster, and it looks like it's built very well top to bottom, forward to defense, and that's exactly what they're going to need to compete in the Central.
For sure. And they've got a couple of guys who were season 2 Hartford Wolfpackers on the back end, and Blade Runner GT and General Patton. So, they've got a couple of guys there who have chemistry with one another, along with, extremely talented defensive centers like Will Roll Tide and Bone Crusher. I think this is a team that's going to be built for shutting other teams down. Because with a guy like Mooner in net, I think this team is going to be very, very good on the back end and in their own zone. So I look for this team to definitely be right there. They're in one of the toughest divisions in the league. So, they're going to be right there when all is said and done. They came out of the gates and did exactly what they needed to do in this league, and that's jump out to a little bit of a lead on some of these guys. They scored 37 goals. They gave up 35. So they're right about, they're just a +2 on the season. So, but they did an outstanding job. They came out and they got it done, and they're sitting at the top of the Western Central right now. And there's something to be said for that. Coming into this week, they're taking on the Metropolitan Division, just like everybody else in their division. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see where the separation starts to happen in this division, as it seems as though they're all playing the same type of teams here to start off, and we'll see kind of where it goes. I thought it was a really good move bringing in B Bunny for them. He's one of my favorite wingers in this league, and it goes to show he's leading the team in points after week 1 and went 3-0. Bill's right there on his heels, going 3-0 this week with 10 points. So look for this team to be there for the long haul if too many changes aren't made, and look for them to really, really go out and make a name for themselves as the Dallas Stars.
For sure. And they started off, the season facing the Winnipeg Jets. They went down 7-0. And, they only played the one game on Monday night. That was the night we had connection issues. So it looks like they rescheduled one of those games for Wednesday. But they came right back on Tuesday, started off against the Chicago Blackhawks, beat them 4-3, then continued on to beat the Wild in the much improved San Jose Sharks. And after starting off the first night with a loss, they come back the next night and win all 3, which that's going to go a long way to help their confidence and putting these new guys together and gaining chemistry. They came back on Wednesday and went 2-1. They beat the Oilers, lost to the Canucks, and beat the Avalanche. And then they lost to the Blues in a 1-goal game, and then beat the Predators in a 1-goal game to end the week. This Dallas Stars team, has some wins over some key division teams, and to come out of the first week of the season playing division opponents in the Central Division and finishing the week in first place, that's an outstanding job by Dallas.
For sure. Well, that being said, that wraps up the Western Central for us. Next week we will be covering another division. I'm not sure if we've quite made our mind up on that yet. Stay tuned to see who that team is going to be. But in moving along in the show here, this is basically bringing us to our power rankings.
Eastern. And we are moving on to our power rankings this week. And, all I can say is there's a lot of names on here that I would have expected to be on here as per usual. But then a lot of guys who either didn't play last season or just came into the PlayStation side on here as well. Let's go ahead and start with the goaltenders. You have a guy in Bielski for returning goaltender for New Jersey, and Jay Claus going 5-1 on the week, and finishing in 10th in the power rankings here. A goaltender in Pat Dean, who hasn't played since season 1 with St. Louis, where he was outstanding, continues his good form on the new NHL 17 game, whereas last time he played in the league was on NHL 16. Goes 4-1 this week, 2.2 goals against, and a 71.8 save percentage with 1 shutout. A guy you were just talking about, and Sam for the St. Louis Blues, went 3-1-1. And right above him, you have Kearns for the Blackhawks, who, even though the Blackhawks, from what people were saying around the league, a lot of people think that they didn't have the week that everybody expected them to have. Kearns manages to go 4-1-1 this week with a 1.89 goals against, a 78.6 save percentage, and 1 shutout. Matt Disney, returning for the LA Kings, goes 4-0-1. 2 goals against average and an 83.6 save percentage with 1 shutout. 0033 for the Carolina Hurricanes, went 4-1.
Rookie and Calder Cup champion 00.
Yep, one and the same. And the Anaheim Ducks brought in their replacement for Schneider this season in J-Town 41, who won the Stanley Cup with Buffalo in season 2. Continues on that form with the Ducks, going 5-1 in this first week, wearing the purple and gold, and goes in and has a 2.34 goals against, a 77.8 save percentage with 1 shutout. And then you get into the league's first 3 stars here. You have D. Raleigh for the Florida Panthers, who goes 5-0-1 with a 1.61 goals against average, 80.4 save percentage. Outstanding job for a Florida team that I expect to be very tough every single night this season. Finishing here in second for the league is Ryan X28, the owner for Buffalo, goes 3-1 this week. Has 38 saves, 2.78 goals against, 77.6 save percentage, and 1 shutout. And the league's first star is Jones, going 3-0-0 with 28 saves, a 0.91 goals against average, a 90.3 save percentage, and 1 shutout. For me, my first star this week is going to go to D. Raleigh for the Florida Panthers, who went 5-0-1, having a 1.61 goals against average and an 80.4 save percentage. Didn't lose a game in regulation, and played the max amount of games that a goaltender can play. Only one that played 6 games this week that didn't have a regulation loss. D. Raleigh gets my first star for the week.
That's an outstanding job by him. Moving on to the defenders, we have some very, very familiar names on this list for the week. There's so many names on this list that I'm not going to name everybody. I am going to go through here and just kind of pick out some guys that stand out to me. You got a defensive pair and trio, Big Mac and KG.
Who are those guys?
Out in Anaheim, who really had solid weeks. KG was a +8 on the week, going 3-0. Jay Barnett for the New Jersey Devils. You see a lot of pairs on the defensive list quite often. You see a lot of D partners on here, and I'm going to assume that most of these guys on here that are here for 2 teams or for the same team are D partners, but you never know. Reactions for Dallas is on here. The $9 million man in Sloshy, which I think is a great contract. Hindsight being 2020 here. Florida went out and they get Sloshy at a very reasonable price, considering how defenders went this season, as well as trio Big Mac. That was an outstanding job by Anaheim picking him up as well. Official Marco Sevens made the list. Speedy for days. Inglis made the list for Tampa. Raya the Beholder, the owner of the St. Louis Blues, makes the list this week. Our boy Downey makes the list, coming in at number 10, who is 3-0 this week with 6 points, was a +2. And then you got Sweet Lou, who really does some good things for this site and puts some outstanding pieces of media out there. If
Switching
you have not,
forward.
Yeah, if you have not read his article about tips and tricks to the trade of being an owner or management, this especially goes out to any AHL management that's out there. Go to his page and find it, because it has some brilliant tips in there and stuff that they've used on the Xbox side. Just kind of things that, just little tips that you want to use as an owner. I thought that was a great piece by him that he put out. He had an outstanding week, going 3-0. Then you got Bobby Orr for the surprising Montreal Canadiens, who went 7-1-1 this week. Bobby Orr comes in at 3-0, picking up 4 points and a plus 11 on the week. Steiny for the Washington Capitals goes 3-0. And one thing that I'm noticing on this entire list of defenders for the week, not one guy lost in either regulation or overtime. Everybody on this list is 3-0. So you got Odie for the New Jersey Devils coming in with a 3-0 record on the week, getting 6 points, was a plus 7. Dakar for the Montreal Canadiens, yet again, another guy from the Canadiens coming in at a plus 11, 6 points. And then you got Stevie 66, who is one of the better defenders in this league. He's coming into his second season in the NHL, goes 3-0 this week with Chicago, picking up 7 points, 2 goals, plus 7 on the week. And then Jay Silvers for the Detroit Red Wings comes out and goes 3-0 this week, picking up 6 points, was a plus 9. And then you got Chris Tastic for the Vancouver Canucks going 3-0, picking up 7 points, 2 goals, plus 8 on the week. And then you have Breezy, another guy from the Detroit Red Wings, coming out and going 3-0 on the week, picking up 7 points, 2 goals, and a plus 9. Very, very tough decision to go through on these defenders. Without seeing strength of schedule here, this is a very difficult one to choose. And, the site goes with Breezy number 1, Chris Tastic number 2, and Jay Silvers number 3. And, I'm going to go ahead and give it to my man, Stevie 66, honestly, because the competition that he faced this week out there in that Western Central is steep. He came out and at a 2.3 points per game click, going 3-0, picking up 7 points and 2 goals himself to a plus 7. That's an outstanding job. It could have literally went to anybody. It's basically throw the dart at the board and grab whoever you want there. So I went ahead and grabbed Stevie 66 for the defenders.
For sure. Moving on to the forwards here. Coming in number 20 here, we have 2019 and 18 dominated by the New Jersey Devils, and that will not be the last New Jersey Devil on this list. But you have Labrat coming in at 3-0, getting 9 points. Dirty Mitts, a.k.a. Easy Dangles, going 3-0 with 11 points, 5 goals, plus 6. Playing center and right wing this week, and Labrat also played right wing and center. Novak for Prez, going 3-0, getting 10 points, 5 goals, plus 4. Then you got Booma Chicka Laboom for the Detroit Red Wings. He also went 3-0 with 11 points and 5 goals. He was a plus 10. NWA for the Montreal Canadiens went 3-0 with 9 points and 5 goals. A lot of guys with 5 goals on this on this list. Then you got Class Act for the Blackhawks, who only played 2 games this week, but in those 2 games had 7 points. 5 of those were goals, and a plus 1. Jay Prue for the Blackhawks went 3-0. He had 10 points. He had 6 goals and was a plus 7. Self-title for the Montreal Canadiens, coming in with 10 points and 5 goals. He was a plus 9. Then you got King Clutch, defending Eastern Conference Championship owner, coming in 3-0 at 14 points with only 4 goals, meaning he set up his guys 10 times in 3 games, which is, I don't know, we call him the distributor, picking up 4.7 points a game. Outstanding job by King Clutch. And then you got Marash 41, who tends to be on this list all the time for Vancouver. He went 2-0-1, but put up 14 points, 5 goals, and a plus 9. Big J. Aoki, the new owner of the Calgary Flames, I believe he's also an owner on the Xbox side, goes 3-0 this week with 14 points. He had 10 goals and a plus 9, playing center and right wing. A guy we just talked about in Dallas, B. Bunny, had 12 points, 6 goals, plus 5. Hazy Hype coming in here for the Philadelphia Flyers, scoring 12 points with 6 goals and a plus 3. And then LA has a pair of forwards here in Jibo 27, getting 15 points with 5 goals and a +7. And Theos making it back into the power rankings this season to start the season in week 1 with 11 points and 8 goals and a +4. J Claus 33, a guy that's probably going to be up here his fair amount this season, getting 12 points with 7 goals and a +5 this week. Then we're moving into our league's top 3 stars here. 7T for the Vancouver Canucks goes 2-0-1, but pulls in 16 points, 7 goals, and a +9 for the Canucks. And Mafia Man 15 bringing home 10 points in only 2 games with Washington. Goes with 3 goals, a +7. And then the Anaheim Ducks get Hillary Knight, a.k.a. Clark, going 3-0 with 11 points. 10 of those were goals. 10 of his 11 points were goals. That's an incredible job putting the biscuit in the basket there for Clark and going +7. And then GB 521 for the Washington Capitals gets the league's first star with 16 points, 7 goals, a +9, 5.3 points a game. And, for me, I'm going to go ahead and agree with that myself. GB 521 getting the first star this week, going 3-0 with the 16 points. 7 of those were goals, 9 of them were assists. He gets the +9 and gets Washington off to a much better start than they did last season. Those are your 3 stars of the week in this week's power rankings.
Well, there you have it. There is your power rankings for the week. Week 1 in the books here. We'll kind of see where it goes from here, but that's kind of it for the week 1 in LG, huh?
Yeah, I think we've probably outstayed our welcome here. We've gone an hour and a half, but again, I want to thank Triz for coming on and giving us some of his time. I know it's very valuable. It's tough to get him on because he's such a busy guy with this league, being involved with everything. So I want to thank him for coming on and clearing some things up and hanging out with us for about 45 minutes. That was great to have him on. Next week we will talk about the Eastern Atlantic Division, the defending Eastern Conference champion Florida Panthers division. We will get to them next week. We'll get to them a little bit sooner in the show, and we'll see if we can get some special guests this week, and we will announce those soon. So thank you guys all for hanging out with us and listening again. We are back firing on all cylinders heading into week 2, and we will see you next week on LG Hockey Hotline.
Take care, guys. Have a good night.